First on CBS this morning, Michael Jackson's family, they are speaking out about sexual abuse allegations against the singer in an explosive new HBO documentary.
The Jackson family, Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and Randy, finally shared what really happened to Michael Jackson. Their words reveal shocking details about a life filled with information and pain, hidden behind his famous smile and dazzling performances. For years, the world adored Michael's music, but few knew the struggles he faced, even within his family. Why did they decide to speak out right now after so many years of his death? Tune in as they reveal the truth they have kept hidden for so long that will change how you look at the king of pop. The Jacksons' rise and struggle. The whole family, Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and eventually Randy, was practically everywhere. The Ed Sullivan Show? Yes. American Bandstand? Absolutely. They were churning out hits like I Want You Back and ABC, dancing like they were born to do it, and honestly, they might have been, given Joe Jackson's iron-fisted management style. Audiences ate it up. They were the picture-perfect family act, while behind the scenes, the kids were just trying to get some peace in their bunk beds at night. If you can call 3-tier bunks with 2 kids per level peace, Joe Jackson definitely wasn't building a life of luxury for those boys. It was more like a training camp. Before we dive deeper, it's obvious the reality was far harsher than anyone could have guessed. And what's coming next will be even more shocking than you'd expect. Fast forward a few decades, and here we are, watching these now grown men talk about their brother Michael. Every now and then, they come back to Gary, trying to find a balance between nostalgia and the weird mix of pride and pain that the town brings. They smile and reminisce, but let's be honest, it's got to be strange standing in front of an audience, talking about Michael and pretending like everything is cool. You can almost see the awkwardness in their smiles as they remember how they all used to pile into that tiny house, fighting over who got to shower first, assuming they even had hot water that day. Jackie, Tito, and Marlon, the surviving brothers, now do their rounds at charity events, openings, and whatever other gig lets them relive the glory days without diving too deep into the painful stuff. Just recently, they were in town for a groundbreaking event for some casino, a Jackson-themed Hard Rock. It's almost funny, isn't it? The little Gary boys, now immortalized in a casino, a symbol of glitz and what's left of that once shiny legacy. But let's not get too sentimental here. They're still here, still performing, even if they're singing I'll Be There to an audience that's more interested in slot machines than the backstory of a musical dynasty. And let's talk about that backstory. No, not the polished one where the Jacksons are the family that brought music to the world. We're talking about the real story, the one with bunk beds, constant touring, and Joe Jackson's rules. Rules that turned those boys into megastars. But at what cost? Sure, they got to travel the world, even to places like Denmark for concerts. But behind the fame was a constant reminder that they were on a tightrope. Michael was the standout, but they all knew, without the group's collective sweat and tears, none of them would be where they were. And that's a tough truth to swallow, especially when you're reminiscing about the days you and your brother wrestled for a quarter because even a penny was worth something back then. When asked about Michael, the brothers usually put on a brave face. They talk about the posters of Michael on buses in Vegas, about the music, about how he'd have loved today's artists. But deep down, you can sense there's more they want to say, more than just glossing over the tragedy of their little brother's life. It's easier to stick to the script, to stay in their lane and promote nostalgia rather than dig into the heartache that's never really left. Because how could it? When you're constantly confronted by the world's fascination with your family's most tragic figure, it's got to take a toll. But let's rewind a bit to where it all began. The Jacksons weren't always the kings of pop and R&B. They were just a bunch of kids trying to get by in Gary, Indiana. Growing up in that tiny house was a challenge in itself. The family was large, and space was scarce. Imagine 7 kids all crammed into a small space, with bunk beds stacked 3 tiers high. Privacy? Forget about it. It was more about survival, about making sure you got your turn in the bathroom before the hot water ran out, about eating quickly so you didn't miss your chance to practice those dance moves. Because if you missed practice, you knew there would be consequences, and not the kind where you just got a stern talking to. Joe Jackson, the patriarch, ran the household like a military camp. There was no room for mistakes, no space for anything less than perfection. He was determined to make his kids into stars, and he succeeded, but at a price. The Jackson kids learned early on that love in their household was conditional. It was tied to how well they performed, how perfectly they sang, how in sync their dance moves were. It wasn't just about being good, it was about being the best, no matter the cost. And that kind of pressure, it leaves scars. The kind that don't go away just because you're rich and famous. The kind that linger, that shape who you become as an adult. The Jackson 5's rise to fame was meteoric. They went from performing at local talent shows to being one of the biggest acts in the world. But the path there was anything but glamorous. The brothers were worked to the bone, practicing for hours on end, performing night after night, all while trying to keep up with school and some semblance of a childhood. The bright lights of fame masked the exhaustion, the fear, the constant pressure to be perfect. And while the world saw them as this happy, talented family, behind closed doors, it was a different story. Michael, the youngest of the original lineup, was always the star. He had that something extra, that spark that set him apart. But being the star came with its own set of challenges. The spotlight was always on him, and the expectations were even higher. He had to be better, had to shine brighter, had to be the one who carried the group to the next level. And he did. But the cost of that success was immense. The pressure to be perfect, to always be on, took a toll on Michael in ways that would become painfully clear as he got older. As they left their early days behind, fame brought the Jackson family new pressures. When fame changed everything. As the Jackson 5 transitioned into the Jacksons and their sound evolved, so did the dynamics within the family. Fame had a way of changing things. It brought money, opportunities, and a lifestyle that was worlds away from their humble beginnings in Gary. But it also brought tension, jealousy, and a sense of competition that wasn't there before. The brothers were no longer just a group of kids singing together for fun. They were a brand, a business, and that came with its own set of complications. Michael eventually broke away from the group to pursue a solo career, and we all know how that turned out. He became one of the biggest stars the world has ever seen, but his success only highlighted the cracks within the family. The brothers tried to keep the group going, but it was never the same without Michael. He was the one who had that magic, that ability to captivate an audience in a way that no one else could. And while the rest of the family was talented, they just couldn't replicate what Michael brought to the table. The 1980s and 1990s were a mixed bag for the Jackson family. Michael was at the height of his fame, releasing hit after hit, while the rest of the brothers were trying to figure out where they fit in the music industry without him. They had some success, but it was clear that the glory days of the Jackson 5 were behind them. The family dynamic grew more complicated, with Michael distancing himself from his siblings and the rest of the family trying to navigate life in the shadow of his success. The media, of course, had a field day with all of this. The Jacksons were always a topic of fascination, and the press was relentless in their pursuit of stories about the family. Rumors, scandals, and controversies seemed to follow them wherever they went. Michael, in particular, was the subject of intense scrutiny. His every move was analyzed, his eccentricities were mocked, and his personal struggles were put on display for the world to see. And while the rest of the family tried to maintain a sense of normalcy, it was nearly impossible with the constant media attention. After Michael's death in 2009, the brothers were left to pick up the pieces. It was a devastating loss, not just for the family, but for the entire world. Michael had been the heart of the Jackson family, the one who had taken their talent to unimaginable heights. His death left a void that could never be filled. The brothers tried to honor his legacy, to keep the music alive, but it was clear that things would never be the same. The world had lost an icon, and the Jackson family had lost a brother, a son, a friend. In the years since Michael's death, the remaining Jackson brothers have done their best to carry on. They've toured, performed, and continued to share their music with the world. But there's a sense of sadness that lingers, an unspoken acknowledgement that the magic they once had is gone. They're not the same group of young boys who captured the hearts of millions. They're older now, and the weight of everything they've been through is evident. The smiles are still there, the performances are still energetic, but there's an underlying melancholy that can't be ignored. The Jackson family story is one of incredible talent, success, and resilience, but it's also a story of pain, sacrifice, and loss. The brothers have endured more than most families could ever imagine, and they've done it all in the public eye. They've experienced the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and through it all, they've managed to keep going. But the cost of that success is something that can't be overlooked. The pressure, the scrutiny, the relentless pursuit of perfection. It took a toll on each of them in different ways. Even now, as the surviving brothers continue to perform and make appearances, there's a sense that they're still trying to prove something. To themselves, to their fans, to the world. They're trying to show that they're more than just Michael's brothers, that they have their own talent, their own legacy, and they do. But it's impossible to separate their story from Michael's. He was the star, the one who took their family name and made it known around the world. And while the rest of the brothers were an integral part of that success, Michael was the one who truly defined the Jackson legacy. The Jacksons have always been a family that thrived on music. It was their escape, their way of coping with the challenges they faced. And even now, music is what keeps them going. It's what connects them to their past, to their brother, to each other. But it's also a reminder of everything they have lost. The fame, the fortune, the adoration of millions. It all came at a cost. And that cost is something the Jackson brothers will carry with them for the rest of their lives. So when you see Jackie, Tito, and Marlon on stage, singing the hits that made them famous, remember that there's more to their story than what meets the eye. Behind the smiles, the dance moves, and the nostalgia, there's a story of sacrifice, of struggle, of a family that was pushed to the brink in the pursuit of fame. The Jacksons may be legends, but they're also human. And their story, with all its triumphs and tragedies, is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Even as the Jackson family continued, it was Michael's life and his passing that changed everything. The truth about Michael's death. Michael Jackson, known globally as the King of Pop, died on June 25, 2009, when he was 50 years old. His doctor, Conrad Murray, gave him a strong sleeping substance that caused his death. Yet some people think Jackson might still be alive. A common idea is that Jackson faked his death to get away from his big debts, which were about $500 million, and the constant attention from everyone. He wanted a fresh start away from the spotlight. Those who believe this theory point to his funeral, which was closed casket, and the absence of any confirmed photos of him after his death as proof. Others think his death was planned to distract the world from serious news like political problems in Iran at that time. They say his death got more media coverage than these issues, which might have been the goal. Another wild theory is that a look-alike replaced him before his death. This came up especially after his appearance at London's O2 Arena, where people said he didn't look or act like himself. However, there's no real proof for this, and many just dismiss it as guessing. There have also been stories about him being seen alive, like in Mexico. A border officer supposedly saw Jackson entering Mexico from California soon after he was reported dead. But no one has ever confirmed seeing him, and these stories are not taken seriously. Recently, numerous fake photos and videos have surfaced on the internet, allegedly showing Michael Jackson still alive. These images are typically created using high-tech software, and though experts quickly debunk them as forgeries, they manage to fuel ongoing hope among certain fans that Jackson might somehow have escaped death. This persistent belief is powered by Jackson's immense stardom and the stunning manner of his death at a relatively young age. His tendency to keep his personal life hidden and the unusual events that surrounded him add to the intrigue. Despite the completion of thorough investigations that confirmed his death was due to a substance overdose and the subsequent conviction of his doctor, Conrad Murray, for involuntary manslaughter, the whispers of his possible survival continue. The tenacity of these rumors can largely be attributed to the internet. Social media platforms accelerate the spread of such claims, enabling those who hold on to the belief of his survival to connect, share dubious evidence, and reinforce each other's beliefs. The digital age has facilitated the emergence of numerous websites and forums where Jackson's fans gather to speculate and share their theories about his supposed undercover life. Moreover, the global reach of social media means that a single new sighting or fabricated piece of evidence can reignite discussions across countless fan sites and social networks. These platforms offer a space where believers can present their interpretations of various events and supposed clues that suggest Jackson might be living a hidden life. Each new alleged sighting or piece of evidence breathes life into these communities, keeping their hopes alive and the conversations vibrant. The idea that Michael Jackson might have staged his own disappearance to escape the pressures of fame and overwhelming debt strikes a chord with many. It suggests the picture of a brilliant artist burdened by the weight of his own celebrity and financial troubles, choosing to vanish and start over. This narrative resonates because it reflects themes of freedom and starting afresh, which are powerful and attractive, especially to those who feel a personal connection to Jackson's life and the battles he faced. The court cases that unfolded after his death add layers of complexity to the public's understanding of what happened. The trial of Dr. Conrad Murray, who was accused and eventually convicted of involuntary manslaughter for giving Jackson the substances that eliminated him, threw a spotlight on Jackson's health issues and how he managed his stress and pain with medication. These details, shared widely in the media, sparked a range of alternative theories about his death. People often distrust the legal processes involving celebrities, finding them opaque and too spectacle-driven, which only feeds into the growing skepticism. Moreover, the messy handling of Jackson's estate and personal affairs that came out during the trial painted a picture of a life in turmoil. As more information about his private struggles became public, people started to question the official accounts even more. This questioning was intensified by the sensational way in which media outlets covered the trial, often focusing on the most scandalous elements to attract viewers and readers. Such coverage tends to leave the door open for all sorts of speculation and conspiracy theories. Despite clear official statements confirming his death on June 25, 2009, the myth surrounding Michael Jackson has grown even larger than the reality. The theories about his supposed survival are fueled by fans' hopes rather than hard facts. These fans find themselves caught up in a narrative that keeps their beloved icon alive in a hidden, peaceful existence far from the harsh lights of the media. This wishful thinking has been amplified by the power of the internet, where stories can spread unchecked and gather followers from around the world. Is Michael's tragic story the result of fame alone, or was there something deeper the world was never meant to know? Share your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.